Time now for your business news with Ropiwa Madzena. Ropiwa, you are focusing once more on the Standard Charter business. They have admitted basically to manipulating the rand.
Yeah.
They've been fined over 40 million rand by the Competition Commission, which is not a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just have to say that. For
Yeah.
them, not for us. Could we see local banks also in trouble?
That is the big question, Sally, but the big culprits, as we're starting to see now, have been the big international banks like Standard Chartered and Citibank. And I suppose in order for them not to be fined exorbitant amounts after investigations, settlements looks like the way to go for a lot of them. That seems to be what they've done, and hence the 40-odd million that they've now been fined. But let's find out about the other banks and really just the bigger story around currency manipulation. And the case stems from 2015 when the Competition Commission launched a complaint against various financial entities. It centered on allegations that the companies engaged in an agreement or concerted practice rather to manipulate prices related to certain foreign currency pairs tied to the South African rand. To unpack this case, let's talk to Harry Scherzer, who is the CEO of Future Forex. Harry, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Let's start by explaining, if you will, in layman's terms, what exactly is currency manipulation?
Hi, Rafiwa. Thanks for having me and looking forward to chatting about this one. Well, currency manipulation is effectively when a big bank or someone outside of a consumer decides to put a price on where they want a currency to be, and they act accordingly. And in this case, it was collaboration by 28 big banks who basically decided they wanted the rand dollar to be in a certain range, and they ensured that was the case based on the way they acted.
Right. Now, what are the direct implications of this kind of manipulation on the local currency?
So effectively, let's say that based on the market, the rand should be at 18.6 to the dollar. And the banks needed to be at 18.5 to the dollar because that's what their position suggests. If it goes to 18.6, they'll make losses. Effectively, what they're able to do is they're able to match certain trades in order to push the price down to where they need it to be, and effectively, in this case, weaken the rand or strengthen the rand, whichever way they need it to go. So effectively, what happens is that they move the rand to a different price to where the market wants it to be.
That's very interesting. And I mean, there were also other allegations of dividing the market and allocating customers. What exactly does that mean?
So the best way to explain this, Rafiwa, would be to assume that two big banks, let's say Bank A and Bank B, both wanted to exercise a rand dollar trade at 18.5. Now, if they were competing against each other, Bank 1 would go 18.5 and been the people on the other end of those trades who might have been paying too much or too little for their rands at the expense of, or rather for the banks to profit.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose net importers of certain products and commodities like South Africa would have probably seen a spike in the certain prices of certain goods in that instance. But as we wrap up our discussion, Harry, let's speak to the lack of transparency in the Forex market. And are we likely to see any of the local banks being named as part of the 28 that are being investigated by the Competition Commission?
Rafiwa, firstly, I really love talking about the lack of transparency of banks in South Africa. This is the mission statement of my company, Future Forex. We believe that particularly in the Forex space, the local banks have been involved in untransparency for far too long and haven't been able to be transparent with their pricing, with the way they do things, in order to almost have a stronghold on the public as a whole. So this is just one example of what banks do for ages. So I'd be absolutely shocked if the local banks aren't named. And I'm pretty certain that there's big announcements to come in the near future.
Yeah, and really just the regulatory bodies that should potentially or probably be regulating the lack of transparency that you speak about, Harry. Has there enough been done here? Because it would seem from your response there that they've been left to just do as they will in the Forex market.
That's exactly right. There's no standard pricing on what you pay as a spread when you transfer currency into or out of the country. It's quite remarkable, actually, how little transparency there is and how little regulation there is to standardize the pricing by banks, which is why you find many of the major banks will advertise in big airport adverts. They'll put their Forex offering because they know that it's a place to make very lucrative profits. And really, it's time to give the consumer the upper hand for once. And this is what Future Forex is trying to do, is sort of reverse that narrative and say it's actually enough of these banks being untransparent and giving absurd pricing to the regular company trying to move money into or out of the country.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what we should end it on, is that the impact on small and medium businesses operating in this space, what is the real impact on the ground there?
So not only do small and medium-sized businesses have to pay a premium due to these absurd fees, which ultimately impacts their bottom line, but individuals are exactly the same, right? If you're an individual emigrating or sending money out the country for an investment or whatever else, you're likely paying a far worse rate for the rand to dollar than you should be. So you're getting less money on the other side. So whoever's moving money around is paying the bank a fat chunk, far fatter than it should be, just to get the money to the other side. So for businesses, it's really tough, especially smaller businesses, because they're the ones who typically get the worst rates, because their bottom line is hit directly. And also for individuals wanting to invest money offshore, you start at a negative position because you're paying a massive fee.
These are very interesting insights, and I'm hoping we'll get to engage with you more as we bring on other stakeholders like the Banking Association and, of course, more that watch the South African banks closely. Thank you very much for those insights. That is Harry Scherzer joining us, and he's the CEO of Future Forex.